September. I'm Stephen Ridgway. So, quick update on the VMware ARIA authentication bypass vulnerability. Um, there is proof of concept code which is now out there. Remember, this is CVE 2023 34039, which is an SSH keys, hard-coded SSH keys vulnerability. The patches are out there. If you have not yet patched, very strongly recommended that you do so as soon as you can. Something else that's been floating around in the news, yet another data breach, blah, blah, blah. This one's FreeCycle. You may have seen this because it actually came to light last week. It's now there's a little bit more information that's been made available about it. There's 7 million users worldwide who've had their data leaked, and the data that has leaked is user IDs, or includes usernames, user IDs, email addresses, and MD5 hashed passwords. Now, MD5 is not strong hashing. So if you are a FreeCycle user, very much recommend that you change your FreeCycle password. And if you have been using the same password for any other services, apart from, well, that's very bad of you, make sure you change those as well, because once these things have been broken, of course, they just get sprayed around. So yeah, FreeCycle. So X, which I love the fact that people now refer to it as the app formerly known as Twitter. X has now said that it will start to collect premium users' biometric data for security and identification processes. Also, X has announced that it will start collecting your job applications and CVs and other bits and pieces in order to help focus recruitment activities. So there is a very interesting space that X appears to be moving into. Up until this point, LinkedIn has had a monopoly on the sort of business end of social media. I mean, LinkedIn is not what it used to be, in my opinion. There's an awful lot more just fluff and general social media going on in there now, and it's less business focused than it used to be, but it still remains more focused on business than any of the other social media platforms. However, if X is going to move into the recruitment space, which they may well do, because I believe they bought a recruitment company not that long ago, it will be interesting to see where this goes. In the meantime, if you are considering putting your biometric information with X, just think about a couple of facts. One is you can't change your biometrics. So once it's out there, if it gets stolen, it can then be reused without the ability to change it. And also think about how much you trust X to secure your data. I don't have good answers to that one, but I think these things shouldn't be undertaken lightly. Okay, so a couple of UK-based things here. Attackers have accessed UK military data via a third party that makes high security fencing. The breach is pretty much textbook. The attacks against a third party. The third party was using out of date operating system in part of its manufacturing processes. In this case, Windows 7. Having gained access to the third party, the third party's network. It was then possible for the attackers to exfiltrate data from UK military. So the usual stuff applies. If you work in manufacturing industry, you will be well aware of the fact that there are many machines out there that do critical business, have a critical business function. They make something, they control something, whatever it would be. They may not be updatable. It may be that for that particular piece of machinery, the only control system is running on a now obsolete operating system. In this case, we're looking at the Lockbit ransomware group, and they managed to have exfiltrated 10 gigabytes of data. Now, 10 gigabytes of data, when you think, you look at it and go, oh, yeah, I've got a terabyte on my laptop, whatever it is. If you actually think about the amount of data that there can be in 10 gigabytes of data, we're not talking here about, high definition movies. We're talking here presumably about actual information. That is an astronomical amount of potential information that can get lost. So if you are running these sorts of environments, it's really important that you understand the threat landscape inside your own organization, and that you put in place very thorough mitigating controls around devices which can't be patched or can't be updated or replaced. We'll also say investing in security visibility for those devices is, from a business risk and cybersecurity perspective, is money well spent. Make sure you understand what's talking to these devices. Make sure you understand what's going on these devices. Other than that, you're kind of stuck with them, aren't you? And then finally, from me today, in the one of my pet hates around government overreach, it's been revealed that the Home Office secretly lobbied in support of a facial recognition spy company that had been rolling out facial recognition inside retail outlets. The idea is an attractive one. You use facial recognition, and you can then reduce crime, because shoplifting is a particular problem, as I think it always is when there's an economic downturn, or in this case, a cost of living crisis, or whatever they want to call it. However, collecting information on perfectly normal activities is not the behaviour of a government that has the best interests of its citizens at heart, in my opinion. If you look at regimes which collect vast amounts of information about very trivial things that people do, they don't tend to be places where most people in the UK would want to live. China is, of course, absolutely famous for this, but it's by far not the only one. We can look back in history, and some significant wars in the 20th century were committed by governments that had a remarkable interest in the minutiae of their citizens' day-to-day lives. This is, I don't think, a good thing. So if a government minister is, although not really technically lobbying the ICO that was investigating the use of facial recognition in shops, it is unhelpful when a senior Home Office official writes to the ICO to tell them that they don't want the ICO to come down against these things. So, as it happens, the ICO has said yes, there were legitimate reasons, so they're not pressing. They didn't press further forward with any of the any further investigations, and they haven't. Prevented this from going on. But it is, as it says in this article in the Guardian, it is. There are concerns that this is quite Orwellian. And for those of you who don't know, Orwell's 1984 is not an instruction manual. And on that note, I shall stop for today. I hope you have a great Tuesday, and I will speak to you all again tomorrow morning.